Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel USA Immigration and Visa. Today I am going to discuss an important topic: what is 221G? Common reasons for refusal, processing times. Let's start the video. Many foreign nationals who wish to travel to the United States need to get a visa to be allowed entry to the country. In some cases, the individual may need to go through an interview process conducted at a U.S. embassy or consulate. During the visa interview, a consular officer will assess all of the required documents and information submitted by the applicant. After reviewing the documents and information, the consulate office may then determine if the applicant's visa should be approved or rejected. Often, a Form 221G will be issued during the visa interview process. This form indicates an applicant's visa has been temporarily put on hold and that further processing is required. So what is Form 221G? This form usually indicates that an applicant's visa has been temporarily refused until specific documents are provided to the consular officer. Should the applicant address the consular officer's concerns and provide the required information and documents, the 221G refusal can be overturned and the visa will be issued to the foreign national. Receiving the 221G letter does not necessarily mean that a visa application has been rejected, nor does it lower the chances of receiving your visa. It may simply mean that the officer is not able to make a final decision based on the documentation you have initially provided. Along with the 221G letter, the consular officer may also supply the applicant with a form specifying the reasons why the visa application has been temporarily refused along with any further required action. What are the reasons for refusal of visa? There are several different reasons why a visa may be temporarily refused and a 221G form issued. The color of the form helps the applicant to identify the type of 221G being issued and identifies the next steps to complete your visa application. The colors of the forms and their meaning are: blue form. A blue form indicates that additional supporting documentation is required. Once the applicant submits the necessary documents, a visa officer will review the form and decide whether your visa application is approved or denied. White form. A white form usually represents a complex 221G category. It indicates that the application requires additional processing by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS. The decision for approval or refusal of the application is usually based on the information obtained by the USCIS. Pink form. A pink form will be issued to applicants when a consular officer has concerns about details provided in the application, such as the applicant's work information, qualifications, or true purpose for visiting the U.S. When a pink form is issued, the application usually requires further administrative processing. Applicants who receive a 221G pink form may also receive a reference ID to track the status of the application. Yellow form. A yellow form indicates that the consulate requires additional time to review the documentation. The actual amount of time needed varies and may depend on the details of each individual case. General administrative processing is typically needed to validate the documentation that the applicant has supplied. There are a variety of reasons why a 221G refusal may be issued. Some of the most common reasons for refusal include: 1. Additional supporting documents are required, such as proof of employment. 2. All visa pages in the applicant's passport have been filled. 3. The photos supplied on the application does not meet the necessary requirements. 4. A visa officer has asked for an advisory opinion regarding the relevance of inadmissibility grounds. 5. The petition approval of the applicant has yet to be listed in the Petition Information Management Service (FMS). What happens when a 221G is issued? When a temporary 221G visa refusal is issued, applicants can expect the following to occur. 1. Issuance of 221G form. The applicant will be provided with a color-coded form, with a unique case number. The color of the form will indicate the reason why the temporary refusal has been issued. 2. Submission of documentation. If the 221G form indicates that additional documentation is required to process a visa application, the consulate will notify the applicant. You can typically submit the requested documents to the Visa Facilitation Services, VFS, electronically or at an appropriate location indicated on the 221G form. Processing for the visa may not proceed until all the requested documents and information have been received. 3. Waiting period. Once the necessary documentation has been submitted, there may be a waiting period before the application is fully processed. The wait time usually varies from case to case, and the applicant may not be required to take any further action within the waiting period. 4. Submission of passport or visa decision. After processing has been completed and the applicant's visa eligibility has been determined, the U.S. consulate will request that you submit a passport, if it has not been submitted already, and the visa consulate will stamp the passport with a U.S. visa. If it is determined that the applicant is ineligible for a visa, the documents you initially provided will be returned to you along with a denial letter. What is the usual processing time for a 221G? The processing time for a 221G form is case-dependent. In some cases, the processing may take weeks, while for others it may take several months. If there are no additional documents needed and the consulate does not need additional information, the case can typically be processed and resolved within a 60-day period. Visa applicants who have received a 221G temporary refusal form are usually asked not to inquire about the status of their case for a minimum of 180 days. However, they may follow up with their visa consulate or the U.S. Department of State if an emergency situation arises, such as the death of a family member or a serious injury. Should a case remain pending after a 180-day period, the applicant can typically check the status of their case by contacting the consulate where the visa interview took place. Applicants with pending cases after the 60-day period may also contact the Visa Application Call Center, but keep in mind that the call center may not be able to provide additional information regarding the status of the case. Reasons for 221G processing delays. While there are several reasons why the processing of a 221G case may be delayed, some of the common reasons for delays include: 1. The consular officer assigned to the case may take a prolonged amount of time to verify information provided by the applicant, such as employer-related information. 2. Information presented in the documentation contradicts information shared by the applicant during the visa interview. In this scenario, the consular officer may need to verify why the information given during the interview conflicts with the documents provided. An applicant's name is on a watch list or is similar to someone else's name on a watch list. In such cases, additional background checks may be required that can delay processing. 3. The additional documentation requested was not properly uploaded to the Petitioner Information Management Service (FMS). 4. The additional documentation requested is incomplete or does not contain the necessary information. How to check the status of 221G processing time. Applicants who receive a 221G form may not check the status of their case before the 180-day waiting period has passed unless there is an emergency. After that period, an applicant can check the status of their 221G case in one of the following ways. 1. Track of the status of a passport. 2. Track a unique case number. Every consulate will have their own process for updating their cases, and not all passports can be tracked here. 3. Contact the Department of State directly by email or by phone. With this method, expect to be provided with the same information found through the two previous tracking options. Is there any way to expedite the process? Unfortunately, there is no way to expedite the processing time. While it may take a considerable amount of time to process a 221G, a pending status does not necessarily mean that the application will be rejected. Should a visa application be rejected, the applicant will receive a written notification in the form of a refusal letter. Are there alternative options available? There are a few alternative options available for applicants who have received a 221G for their visa application. 1. Applying for a visa under a different category that the applicant previously applied under. This option may be used only if the applicant is eligible for an alternative visa category. In this case, the applicant may not be required to withdraw his or her pending application. 2. Apply for the same visa that the applicant previously applied for, but via a different employer. Depending on the applicant's existing petition, his or her employer has the ability to file a cap-exempt petition on the applicant's behalf. When the cap-exempt petition is approved, the applicant may schedule another visa interview. The applicant is not usually required to withdraw his or her existing 221(g) application when applying for the same visa through a different employer. Visa applications after a 221(g). Whenever someone applies for a U.S. visa, they will be asked if they have ever been refused a U.S. visa in the past. The applicant must answer the question truthfully. It is usually imperative that applicants answer this question honestly and that they are prepared to explain why their application was refused, even if the 221(g) visa refusal was for something trivial. Failing to tell the truth about your previous visa applications can result in a denial. 221(g) refusal assistance. Applicants who have been issued a 221(g) refusal may wish to consider seeking the assistance of an immigration attorney to avoid unnecessary delays or confusions when providing further documentation. That's all in this video. See you next time in this video.